When it comes to Shabbat, a person has to understand. The Chafetz Chaim writes in regards to the Midrash on Masechet Shabbat, in page 10b, where Kadosh Baruch Hu tells Moshe Rabbeinu, I have a precious gift in my treasure chest, and it's called Shabbat. And I wish to present it to the Am Yisrael. Go and inform them. Meaning that Kadosh Baruch Hu gave the gift of Shabbat to Am Yisrael even before the Torah. Even before the Torah. And Chafetz Chaim writes in regards to this Midrash that there are many different types of precious gems in the world, some which are literally priceless. Very few people have the means to purchase a large collection of such jewels. Even kings and emperors would find it difficult to obtain samples of every type of gem known to man. The more powerful the king, the more vast his empire is, the more likely it is that he will have a larger collection of rare gems. The Holy One, blessed be He, the King of Kings, has access to all the treasures of gold, silver, and jewels in the universe. But nevertheless, He does not take pride in any of these, and instead, He has a treasure, and He calls it Shabbat, which He called His precious gift. Clearly, it's impossible for us to conceive its true value, yet every Jew has access to this precious gift. All you need to do is observe the Shabbat. Everyone should be anxious to observe it to the very best of their ability in order to gain the largest portion of the possible of this precious gift. Now, here the Chafetz Chaim tells us that the master of all and the owner of all doesn't call everything his precious gift. He calls Shabbat his precious gift, and I'm giving it to you. A person that's wise understands that he needs to do everything possible to get as much of this gift as they can. The Rambam in Ilchot Shabbat, chapter 30, Halakha number 15, writes that whoever observes the Shabbat as the Halakha prescribes and honors it, and indulges in its pleasures to the best of their ability, will receive an abundant reward in this world, in addition to the reward set aside for him in the world to come. And in the merit of observing Shabbat, the sins of a person can be forgiven to the extent where our sages, Rabbi Chia and Bar Abba, says, even someone who was an idol worshipper, as people did in the generation of Enosh, through observing the Shabbat as the halakha dictated, will be forgiven for idol worship. That's how valuable Shabbat is. Now when you have such a treasure, and someone plays with fire, and says, sometimes he cares about it, sometimes he doesn't care about it, sometimes he treats it carefully, sometimes not so much. What does that mean? He doesn't understand how precious it is. And that's why the Rambam continues. The mitzvah of Shabbat is equivalent to all of the other mitzvot in the Torah combined. It's a sign of the eternal connection between the blessed Holy One and us. And therefore, anyone who transgresses any of the other mitzvot in the Torah is still considered a Jew. Even though they're a wicked one, nonetheless still a Jew. But someone who publicly desecrates the Shabbat is considered for all halachic purposes to be on the level of a member of the idol-worshipping nations. So when someone can go from gaining the greatest treasure Hashem has in this world, to now he's about to lose it, but not just lose it, turn into an idol worshipper, we now understand why the sages speak so harshly on the sinners. We now understand why Moshe Rabbeinu had to kill Tzlofchad for violating Shabbat and being the first Mechalel Shabbat in history. He killed him with the worst death penalty in front of everyone. The Zohar Kadosh says every Friday afternoon there's an announcement broadcast throughout every section of Gehenom that all of the suffering of the sinners has to be halted. But for those who didn't observe the Shabbat while they were alive, the fires of Gehenom are never extinguished. Meaning, if a person made sins and got themselves into Gehenom, but if they at least kept Shabbat, they'll have a break on Shabbat and eventually get out of Gehenom. But if a person died without doing tshuva for Shabbat, the fire never goes out. Not on Shabbat and not ever. The Chafetz Chaim elaborates further and says there are 4 different methods of halachic executions. The simplest one is chenek, which means strangulation. For the more severe sins, a person is executed by hereg, which is decapitation by a sword. But for the other, more severe sins, a person is executed by slifa, which is burning. But the most terrible form of execution in the Torah is reserved for the worst possible sins, which is skila, stoning. This punishment is reserved for the sin of desecrating Shabbat. The most terrible of all punishments that the Torah prescribes, Chafetz Chaim says. That means, Rabotai, a murderer gets lesser of a punishment than a mechalet Shabbat. They both get death penalty. But a murderer is considered less of a sinner than a mechalet Shabbat. There is an opinion from the Chachamim that a murderer still has a share of the world to come. Some say he doesn't. But some say he still has a share of the world to come. But yet, in regards to Mechalel Shabbat Befaresya, everyone says, across the board, has no share of the world to come. Why? Because Rachmanah said that. HaKadosh Baruch Hu said he has no share of the world to come. Rabbi Yonatan Eibeshitz wrote this in Yarot Dvash, in chapter 2, section 3, that our sages taught in Masechet Shabbat, page 156a, that someone who is born on Shabbat, then he will die on Shabbat as well. But this is because he forced others to desecrate Shabbat to save his life when he was born. Meaning, if you're born on Shabbat, you have to violate Shabbat for him. He's going to die on Shabbat also. Why? Because he forced people to desecrate Shabbat for him to be born, and he's going to do the same when he dies. Now what happens if... So it's not ideal. It's not ideal. What happens if somebody dies right before Shabbat? Ben Hashmashot. And gets buried. The Ramban writes, and Chachamim concur, say someone that dies on Friday and gets buried Ben Hashmashot before Shabbat has such a high merit, there is no chibuta kevel. Meaning, he goes straight to the Beit Din of Shamayim. No suffering in the grave at all. Nothing. Why? Nobody violated Shabbat because of you. Shtabach Shimo. Now, the sages continue saying that someone that violates Shabbat is considered as if he denied the truth of the entire Torah and is given the halachic status of an idol worshipper. It doesn't mean that he's considered not Jewish and he has to convert, but rather he's considered an idol worshipper when it comes to how you treat him. So for example, if you have a Christian friend or other types of idol worshippers, and they see that you have an open bottle of wine on your counter and they pick it up, that wine, you're not allowed to drink it anymore. Why? Because one of the forms of idol worship in the past has been that they would give this wine to their gods. This form of idolatry. So we don't know if they just picked it up just to see the tag, or it was really a form of idolatry. We don't know. We can't trust them. We have to throw it out. You can't even give it to your dog. You can't sell it. Nothing. Not if the guy's an idol worshiper. He believes in Buddha. He believes in some cow. He believes in some human being. A precious Jew that turns himself into an idol worshiper by violating Shabbat, he touches your wine, you have to treat it the same way. You have to throw it out. That's what it means, treating him like an idol worshiper. If an Arab skilled at slaughtering. Skilled. If he slaughters your cow, tarif, not allowed to eat it. Not allowed to eat it. Christian, Muslim, atheist, some type of Buddhist, whatever they are, non-Jew, they slaughter your cow, your chicken, not allowed to eat it. Tarif. A Jew slaughters the cow. If he's a mechalel Shabbat, also tarif, not allowed to eat it. Why? Halachic consideration, idol worshiper. Not allowed to eat it. You had a wedding. You need 2 witnesses for a wedding. One of your witnesses is a mechalel Shabbat. Your wedding is not valid. Why? A mechalel Shabbat is not allowed to be a witness in a Jewish ceremony. Not allowed. That means that if you used a mechalel Shabbat as a witness in your wedding, you have to get married again. A person has to understand that here you have something that's the greatest treasure that a Kadosh Baruch Hu has in his treasure chest, and losing it doesn't just mean you don't have it. It's so precious to a Kadosh Baruch Hu that you forsaking it, chas v'shalom, is such a disregard and disrespect to him. It's as if you violated the entire Torah, which turns the person into an idol worshiper. And some poskim rule that this stringency applies even more to somebody who publicly performs acts that our sages forbid as well. Meaning that it doesn't have to just be a mechalel Shabbat that drives the car on Shabbat that's considered an idol worshiper, but rather even if somebody went against the chachamim, the rabbinical mitzvot. Like, for example, muktzeh. He doesn't care about muktzeh. Rabbi said, not to touch muktzeh. You're not allowed to touch your phone on Shabbat. Not allowed to touch it. Torah doesn't say you're not allowed to touch your phone. Torah says you're not allowed to turn on your phone. Use your phone, not allowed. But to just touch your phone, just pick it up, Torah doesn't say that. But the sages said, no, we have to put a fence around the fence. You're not even allowed to pick up your phone. You're not allowed to pick up a pen. And he says, sages, schmages, I'm going to do whatever I want. I'm not going to turn on the phone, I just want to put it over here. I'm not going to write anything, I just want to see what it says. What's the big deal? No, you guys are a fanatic. Chachamim say, idol worshiper. Idol worshiper. Why? I didn't drive on Shabbat, Rabbi. Idol worshiper. Why? You disregarded the sages. And on top of being an idol worshiper, is a special punishment for making fun of the sages. What's the punishment? Person goes to tzo'aro tachat. No, to a boiling seed. Who's going to be his next door neighbor? Yoshke. That's where he is. Why? Because the Gemara Masechet Gittin says Yoshke made fun of the rabbis, disregarded them, that's his punishment. That's his punishment. So a person that disregards the rabbinical mitzvot thinks, it's just rabbinical, you know. Rabbinical is a big deal. Why? Because the Kadosh Baruch Hu says, these rabbis, these are my soldiers. These are my most loyal. Now, even though he has not publicly performed any act that the Torah forbids, he has lost his status as a Jew and is considered an idol worshiper according to Halacha. See Pitet Tshuva and Rav Akiva Igel and Yoreh De'ah, section 2, Halacha number 5. The prophet Nehemiah, chapter 10, recounts how the leaders of the Jewish people in his time, a few thousand years ago, signed a pact reaffirming their commitment to accept Hashem as their God and to observe His mitzvot faithfully. But later it was discovered that the people were not faithful to this pact during Nehemiah's absence and were remiss concerning 3 of its clauses: the obligation to separate tithes, meaning give maaser, from all of their produce, to avoid intermarriage with women of other nations, and to observe the Shabbat. In reaction to this, Nehemiah instituted various safeguards for the continued Shabbat observance of the nation, and he recorded this incident as follows. In those days I noticed in the land of Yehudah that peddlers were coming to Yerushalayim from other cities to sell their wares to the residents of Yerushalayim. They engaged in the trade of wine, grapes, and figs, and they purchased fish from the peddlers of teal. I complained to the people, saying, what is this evil thing that you're doing? You're bringing the wrath of God onto the people of Israel by desecrating Shabbat. Meaning these people were doing business on Shabbat. He says, what, you think that you doing business on Shabbat is just going to affect you? No. Wrath of God's going to come on everybody. You're violating Shabbat, everybody's going to get punished. It's not just you. Why? Number one, they're allowing it to happen. Number two, they're not rebuking you. Number three, Kol Yisrael Aravim Zeh LaZeh. Everybody's connected. You violate Shabbat, somebody else gets hurt too. If you violate Shabbat and on the news you hear some Jewish soldier got killed, don't think twice. It's your fault. Don't think twice. It's your fault. No, I didn't kill him. Well, you didn't save him either. You didn't save him either. Tsunami hurt Jewish people, your fault. Corona killed people, it's your fault. Don't mistake. Don't like saying, no, it's not. It's your fault. You're a murderer. You kill people. Don't blame the Arab that killed the Jewish soldier. Don't blame him. He's just a little pawn that Hashem uses to do His will. What allowed this Arab to murder a Jewish soldier? The people that are sinning, people that are violating Shabbat, people that are wasting seed, people that are changing the Beit Din of Shamayim and changing the halachot, say all types of stupid things that they say against the Torah, like there's no relevance of 13 principles of faith, God needs us, homosexuality is no longer an abomination, all types of nonsense that Manus Friedman and his friends say. People change the halakha, make the Torah into some type of an opinion book. Kadosh Baruch Hu says, I bring wrath to the world. You hear about Jewish people dying, don't think for a second of anything else. Whose fault it is? Their fault. All of those people. All of those people. Sometimes those people are religious. Sometimes they're secular. Sometimes they're Mechalel Shabbat. Sometimes they're Shomer Shabbat. But they make other sins. Point being, wrath comes to the world because of sins, not because Hashem has nothing to do. So Nehemiah tells the people that by violating Shabbat, you're bringing the wrath of God onto the Jewish people. When the shadows darkened the gates of Yerushalayim before Shabbat, I gave an order to the doors to be locked and shut, and that they were not to be open until after Shabbat. I ordered that the doors of the city be locked so that the peddlers would not enter the city to sell their wares. The peddlers remained encamped outside Yerushalayim once or twice, and I said to them, why are you camped by the wall? If you will do this again, I will raise my hand against you. From then on, they no longer came on Shabbat. I then proclaimed, please my God, remember this good deed for me, and have mercy on me, as befits your abundant chesed. The prophet Nehemiah tells these people, if you come to Yerushalayim again, I'm going to raise my hand. What does that mean? When a prophet tells you, I'm going to raise my hand, what do you think he's going to have? A fist fight? Prophet's saying, if you come here on Shabbat, I'm going to say one word, you're all going to die. One word, I say to Hashem, you're all going to die instantly. One word. The Gemara, Yerushalmi, Masechet Ta'anit, page 24b, says that there was a large populated city named Tur Shimon. Its greatness lay in the fact that every Friday they produced an enormous amount of loaves of bread to distribute to the poor people. Nevertheless, in the end, the city was sacked and destroyed. Why did this happen? They gave a lot of tzedakah. Organization gives a lot of tzedakah. People think, they're such tzaddikim. Look how much good they're doing. Why are you speaking against them all the time? They have challah parties, Chanukah parties. They help they're good. So the Gemara says, there are many other people in the past that had challah parties and Chanukah parties and donate a lot of money. They did, plenty. But HaKadosh Baruch Hu destroyed them anyway. Why? Why did this happen? The Gemara says, it was because the people of the town had a practice of playing with a ball on Shabbat. They like to shoot hoops. They like to shoot hoops on Shabbat. You want to shoot hoops? No problem. I'll destroy everything. Want to shoot hoops? No problem. Section 7. Why? The Torah was not given to us as a suggestion book. The Shabbat was not given to us as something we can choose to take or not take. Kadosh Baruch Hu says, this is the greatest gift I have. Don't spit in my face. Honor it. So then the Chachamim say, so what did Hashem give us the Shabbat for? What are we supposed to do? Learn Torah. Not play with balls. What are you, a dog? If you want to be a dog, ask Hashem, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, please, please bring me back as a gilgul of a dog. I want to play with balls all day. My master will throw a tennis ball, go, I get a ball, I come back, ball, back, maybe I'll jump into a pool, get the ball, ask HaKadosh Baruch Hu, bring you back as a dog, as a gilgul, no problem. You want to play with a ball on Shabbat? Just ask Hashem, just make me a dog and that's it. But if you want to be a Jew, you can't play with balls on Shabbat. Why? Gemara says an entire city, not a family, not a person, an entire city full of millions of people was destroyed because people were playing basketball on Shabbat. Avraham Chaim Naeh wrote in his Ketzot HaShulchan, it's absolutely frightening to contemplate this passage in its message about the sanctity of Shabbat. After all, even those poskim who rule that it's forbidden to play with balls on Shabbat agree that it's only because the balls are muktzeh, and it's forbidden only by our sages. Yet this sin caused the destruction of an entire metropolis of Tur Shimon, despite the great merit of the charity that the people of that city distributed regularly. Furthermore, from the very fact that they distributed the loaves on Friday, we see that these people honored the Shabbat, meaning they kept Shabbat. Because they gave the challah on Friday, which means it was connected to the Shabbat. These people were Shomrei Shabbat. They did not kindle fire on Shabbat, nor did they bake or carry from place to place on Shabbat. These weren't like people that were driving to the Boca Raton synagogue. They weren't driving. They weren't working on Shabbat. What are they doing? They're playing basketball. They're playing with a ball. That's it. And Rav Avraham Chaim Naeh writes, it's likely that they observed the rules of Muktzeh regarding all other items. This one detail they ignored brought this massive, terrible massacre. Why? They ignored what the sages said. One thing, everything else they kept. Halakha. Everything they kept. Kadosh Baruch Hu says, it's too precious of a gift. It's too precious of a gift for you to mistreat it. It's too precious of a gift. You can't throw a diamond that's worth $100 million in the air like a ball. Needless to say, you can't throw the king's daughter in the air when you're on a 100-story building and on the balcony. Alright, it's too precious of a gift to take any risks. Too precious of a gift. Last thing, and then we'll get to questions. Rav Midvinsk, Rav Meir Simcha Midvinsk wrote in Mashech Chochmah, if a Jew does not observe Shabbat, he lowers himself to less than the status of a dumb beast. To achieve atonement, he must be stoned to death. If he is not stoned, the connection of his soul with God and his Torah, the bond between God and the nation of Israel, will be severed permanently. Therefore, executing him with stoning is actually doing him a great favor. Giving him the worst possible death penalty at the time of the Sanhedrin, we can't execute these things today, is doing him a favor. Why? At least his soul will not be permanently severed from Hashem. His Gehinnom will end at some point. But since we do not have the Sanhedrin anymore, we can't execute this. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu, in His mercy, He says, even though we don't have the Sanhedrin, the death penalty still apply. So when you see a person got into a plane crash, chas v'shalom, car accident, fell out of a building, that's stoning. That's stoning. So why? HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, I gave you the greatest treasure. I gave you the greatest thing. What did you do? You spit in my face. Why? Because you want to play with a ball. You want to drive on Shabbat. Yeah, but the shul is too far from my house. Don't go. There is no commandment to go to synagogue. There is a commandment to keep Shabbat though. And a person needs to understand that when it comes to Shabbat, it is not a suggestion. HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, you have to understand it's such a precious gift. This gift of Shabbat, if you observe it, not only is it going to reward you in the next world, not only is it going to reward you in this world with Parnasah, with Shefa, with Shlom, a lot of things, Shlom Bayit, all types of wonderful things come on Shabbat. Your Torah learning is counted 1,000-fold when you learn on Shabbat versus the rest of the week. So much so that some of the sages would literally not go to sleep on Shabbat, not to waste a single minute and learn the whole time. But on top of all this, the Shabbat is one of the greatest tshuva tools in the world. Why? Just by keeping Shabbat, it's repenting for many of your sins as great as the ones as idol worship. So it's so much loss that unless Hashem tells you and promises you, and He can't break His promise, that the punishment is going to be the most severe of all punishments, you're not going to take it seriously. He says you cannot afford this loss. You could afford other losses. You could afford to lose 100 grand. You could afford to lose a foot. You could afford to lose an eye. You could afford to lose a lot of things. You cannot afford to lose Shabbat. Because if you lose Shabbat, you lost everything. Your tshuva will never happen. Your reward simply goes into the garbage. Your parnasa and shefa, all the things that you were supposed to get, will never have bracha. You may make a lot of money, but you'll never have blessing. All that money will go to bills, taxes, lawsuits. Hashem yishmor v'yatzil. And we're not even just talking about the biblical sins like driving on Shabbat. That's a needless to say. You light a fire on Shabbat, it's obvious you're going against Hashem, mamash, like war. And one of my students is an engineer, tells me, no, Rabbi, you made a mistake. You're saying that someone drives a car is lighting a fire. It's wrong. It's not lighting a fire, Rabbi. It's lighting thousands of fires. So what do you mean? He says, okay, let me give you a graph. He gives me a graph 4 or 5 years ago. This is what it is. From 0 to 60 miles per hour, for every approximately 15 minutes, it's something like 60,000 fires that you lit. That means you violated Shabbat 60,000 times. Just by going from your house to the traffic light. By the time you got to the shul, 20 minutes later, Hashem yishmor v'yatzil. You need a miracle to get out of this Gehinnom that you put yourself into. So what did HaKadosh Baruch Hu do? He said, listen, I have a gift for you. What's the gift? Shabbat. Yeah, but I was violating it till now. Okay, keep it. So what am I do but the past? First of all, you keeping it, that already helps. That already helps. But better yet, it's going to help you purify yourself, purify your mind. You can understand a big secret I have in the world. It's called Kiruv. Get other people to keep Shabbat. Take one of these CDs. Take one of these 10-cent flyers. Take one of the USBs. Take one of the free online lectures. Share it with somebody. Share this clip right now with your friend that's not keeping Shabbat. With your friend that is keeping Shabbat, but not exactly as he should. Or even he's keeping as he should, but he needs a little more chizuk anyway. Share this with everybody. Like spam mail everyone. buy a list of 100,000 Jews and send them all emails every single week about Shabbat if you have to. Why? Every single time you get one of these people to keep Shabbat, guess what? Every one of the Shabbat that they're going to keep for the rest of their life makes up for your Chilul Shabbat in the past. So instead of showing up to Shamayim as someone that keeps Shabbat but still has 20, 30 years of Chilul Shabbat, so you have 30 years of Shabbat violation as a deficit, you're still missing. What do you come up to Shamayim with? A surplus of thousands of Shabbat. Why? You sent people the emails, you sent people the CDs, you sent people the posters, you invested in Kiruv, you didn't do anything, you just gave us money to do it. Whatever you did, but you did something on a regular basis that got people to keep Shabbat. Every single person that keeps Shabbat from that point on goes to your account. Every week it's like you're keeping 100, 200, 300, 400 Shabbats. In a matter of 6 months, you've completed Shuvah for 20, 30 years of Chilul Shabbat. So from that moment on, everything is extra. When you go up to Olam Haba, guess what? Not only are you going to have an endless Olam Haba, but guess what? People, just like they prayed to Rabbi Meir Baal HaNes, and Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, and Rabbi Akiva, and Moshe Rabbeinu for their merit, please Hashem, please, for the merit of Moshe Rabbeinu, for the merit of Rabbi Meir, please help me. Why? Because Moshe Rabbeinu, Rabbi Meir, all the sages, they have extra merits. People are going to pray for the merit of Reuven, for the merit of Shimon, that he got so many people to do tshuva. Please help me. Because you have so many merits. Because you got so many people to do tshuva. Instead of going up there with a deficit, you go up there with a merit. Now, no one's praying to you, but you're rather using your merit. And a person that goes up to Shamayim with a surplus, there's no one in the world that's more lucky than him.